Hello and welcome to the Boot Room. Andy Warren and Stuart Watson here to look ahead to Ipswich Town's top-end clash with Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough. It's been a great start for Ipswich, Stu, but business is picking up. One game at a time is the rhetoric from the camp, but I think everybody's really looking ahead a little bit here, aren't we, in terms of what's to come over the next couple of weeks?
Massive fortnight, isn't it? Crunch time for Ipswich Town, as you say. So far, so good. Couldn't have really got off to a much better start. Top of the table, unbeaten in 8, 6 clean sheets in the last 7, all competitions, joint top goal scorers in the league, answering several of the question marks from last season. Can they beat teams that have just got promoted? Yes. Can they dig in at some of the more physical sides like Burton and Accrington? Yes. Can they be a bit more ruthless in games and put teams to the sword? Yes, they've done that a couple of times. But one major question mark remains, and that's can they start beating some of the big boys? Because their record against the teams that have finished top 6, top 8, top 10 even since dropping into League One has been pretty appalling, really. And that's something that they need to address if they're going to be the real deal this season. And as you say, this next fortnight, major chance to do so.
First up is 4th placed Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough, followed by Plymouth and Portsmouth, obviously. Hillsborough, Stu. I love going to Hillsborough, proper football ground. 2 big clubs going at it at the top end of League One. Ipswich can go there without fear, though. They are top of the table. They're playing good football. They're confident. They don't concede goals and they know how to score them. So there's no reason for Ipswich to have any trepidation. The past has been appalling in terms of top 10 teams faced, but that is in the past. This is the here and now.
Yeah, absolutely. Sheffield Wednesday's squad, no doubt about it, is strong. Every bit as strong as Ipswich's in terms of quality and depth. They finished last season like a train, won something like 15 of their last 22 to finish just shy of automatic promotion. In the end, lost to Sunderland in the playoffs. And you have to say that Darren Moore has improved that squad since then. Yes, they lost some big players like Massimo Luongo, Berahino left, but they've gone out and recruited championship quality players with promotion know-how. I mean, the very fact that they went and signed 2 of Rotherham's best players in Iikwe and Michael Smith after they got promoted spoke volumes. Stockdale in goal, the list goes on. Barry Bannon, for me, is the best player in the division. I know Ipswich fans will maybe balk at that, but for me, he is. So it's a very good Sheffield Wednesday squad. But as you rightly say, Ipswich can go there full of confidence and belief themselves. They're top of the table for a reason. All those stats that I've reeled off have happened for a reason. Ultimately, I'm just really looking forward to seeing these 2 teams go toe-to-toe and see how it unfolds.
We'll get on to Ipswich in a moment. That beyond even the players you've just mentioned there are some players in this Sheffield Wednesday team I really like. And I think what I like most about them as a team is that they've got clearly kind of quality in there in terms of Barry Bannon, but they've got a bit of everything. Like if they go with Smith and Gregory up front, that's a proper kind of big physical front line. I'm quite looking forward to seeing Alex Myton play, who's someone I wasn't really hugely aware of going into this summer, but clearly has a lot of ability. George Byers in there as well. They can do a little bit of everything, this Sheffield Wednesday team, but Ipswich have shown they can do that as well. Boot Room is obviously a place, Stu, where we look over the Ipswich team and what that may be, but as this season's gone on, an 11 is emerging, isn't it? But there's just one obvious area of this side that we need to discuss today.
Yeah, centre-half, who replaces Cameron Burgess. Cruel blow for him. Bad timing both for the player and for Ipswich Town, really. Cameron Burgess had to really bide his time to get in this McKenna team because that back 3 was so well established at the back end of last season. But he's got in and he stayed in and he was looking a player really in form, but took a nasty knee flush to the face when executing a well-timed slide tackle in midweek and has ended up with facial fractures, plural, around the nose and cheek area, so that doesn't sound good. He's going to undergo surgery. Definitely, obviously not available this weekend. I don't know how long term that will be. But I would say you're right. That's the only area of the team now that has got a question mark against it. You go through the rest of it: Walton, Donatian, Wolfenden, Burns on the right, Davis on the left, Morsey and Evans nailed in, Chaplin and Harness in behind Ladapo. And I think there's not really too many question marks over those. So just that left-sided centre half. Where's your pound going on for that one?
Well, before I place a pound, it's an area of the team where Town are well stocked. But we're talking in midweek, they were able to bring on Dominic Ball from the bench, who brings some real flexibility. He can obviously brought in as a midfielder, but can play a bit of centre half and did well when he came on. But really, we're talking about Edmondson and Keogh here, aren't we? Richard Keogh, one of the most decorated championship players ever, has played more games than almost anybody in the history of the championship. Real experience against George Edmondson, who we know has got a real tremendous upside, but maybe hasn't quite hit the heights that we were used to from him. The way that Kieran McKenna was talking on Tuesday night, you've referenced this previously in other things that we've done, was talking about how well Keogh has been, Edmondson, has been training since dropping out of the match day 18, which is maybe a nod towards Edmondson being next in line. But I wonder whether it might be Keogh. I think my pound would probably go towards Keogh. Depends what I'm betting on. Am I betting on what Kieran McKenna would do or what I would do? If it was me, I'd lean towards McKenna. McKenna, he could do a job, couldn't he? Keogh, I'd lean towards Keogh.
Yeah, you can make a strong argument for both. I think in Edmondson's favour, you'd say he's more au fait and up to speed with the way this Ipswich Town team functions. And has got a bit more match fitness about him. Okay, he's not been involved in the last few games, but has played a decent amount of football this season. So that would be the pro for him playing. Keogh, big game player. Go to Hillsborough, big crowd, deal with the occasion, up against a couple of physical strikers that you've mentioned. That would be the tick for him. Can I throw a wild card option in there as well?
Please do. I think I know which way you might be going with this, but chuck it
Yeah,
in.
I could make a really strong argument for Greg Lee here, because I think Kieran McKenna has talked a lot about the number of 6 foot plus players in the Sheffield Wednesday team, their aerial threat, their threat from set pieces. So losing Burgess for this game is bad timing, really. He would have been ideal for this type of challenge. If you look at a couple of their goals against Morecambe in midweek, both near post headers from corners. Greg Lee is very strong in the air, and he played really well when he came on for Davis on Tuesday night. And it's a shame for him that he's got someone ahead of him that's come with such a big transfer fee and that is starting to really find his feet. But I believe he has played in a back three before. Greg Lee, we kind of know him as a left back, a left wing back so far, but I think it would be a big stretch for him to suddenly jump ahead of Keogh and Burgess and Edmondson. But it's not impossible given the type of challenge that Ipswich face this weekend.
What about ahead of Davis then? If not ahead of Edmondson and Keogh, what about in ahead of Davis? We've seen that happen before, haven't we, at Burton, when a slightly different test. I don't think Sheffield Wednesday are quite sort of the long throw every ball they possibly can in the box kind of team. But Smith and Gregory do like that kind of thing. Is there an argument there that maybe that one could be considered?
Maybe, yeah. You mentioned Alex Myton, who kind of pulls across to that right-hand side. He's a really direct, tricky, skillful type of player that it depends. The way McKenna's talking about, we need to go there and impose our game on them. I think if you start making too many sort of changes to blunt the opposition rather than take the game to them, I think his mindset will be get Davis putting them on the back foot and trying to sort of get their threats pinned back in their half. But yeah, you can see why they try and get Lee into this team, whether it's on the left, whether it's in defence, or what. Even if he doesn't start, I think he might have a role to play in this game at some point.
Yeah, that's how I see him. I think I think Leaf Day. Hopefully, the ideal scenario is Leaf Davis plays on that left side. Ipswich have a threat down both flanks, causing problems. Take a lead, and then you've got Greg Lee who can maybe just tighten things up a little bit and play the final half an hour. Those, we've said it so many times, but those two have massively upgraded that position of the Ipswich Town team. It was badly needed, and they've done a very good job in the transfer market of doing that. Before we get on to some predictions, Stu, have you got any more notes for Hillsborough? Any more grenades you want to chuck into this Ipswich Town team, or any more thoughts?
Just general thoughts on Sheffield Wednesday. We've waxed lyrical about their squad depth, but I'm sure their fans and journalists and people sort of associate with them will be thinking exactly the same about Ipswich. Looking from afar, going through this Ipswich squad and saying, crikey, they've spent £1 million plus on a left back, and they've got 2 players for every position. I think it's worth mentioning that Freddie Ladapo has got a rather good record at Hillsborough. He's scored a couple of very important goals for Rotherham in what, of course, is a South Yorkshire derby. So is it time for him to finally get his first league goal for Ipswich? We shall see. And we should also mention that their last home game didn't go very well at all. They lost 2, talking of South Yorkshire derbies, they lost 2-0 at home to Barnsley, and by all accounts were very flat and off it, and the crowd got a little bit edgy in that one. Went and won 3-0 at Morecambe in midweek, had 29 shots on goal, and finally got their goals in the last sort of 10-15 minutes to win 3-0 there. But they're back at Hillsborough now, and this is an expectant home crowd, and as McKenna says, that can go for you, but it can easily go against you as well. And if Ipswich can start as fast as they have done in games this season, they could turn that to their advantage. That's got to be the hope.
Testament to your early point. I believe I'm right in saying at least 2 of those goals at Morecambe were pretty similar, clever balls in from Bannon, near post headers from set pieces or broken down set pieces. So that is definitely something that needs to be watched. Prediction then, Stu. I'll let you go first. The first of 3 really, really big games. How do you see this one playing out?
I'll stick with what I said on the podcast a day or so ago. I think it will be a draw. I think I'd be quite happy with that from an Ipswich Town perspective, and I'll go for a 0-0, an entertaining 0-0. 2 very good teams cancelling each other out.
I too will stick with my earlier prediction of also a draw, but a goal apiece, 1-1, and I think at this point, remaining unbeaten, coming away from Hillsborough with a point is pretty good. Heading into 2 more big games, and of course the small matter of the Papa John's Trophy clash with Arsenal, which a wry smile appeared on Kieran McKenna's face when asked about these 3 games coming up. He wanted to remind people that there is, of course, this game in there as well. We'll be back to talk about that one at some point, I am sure. But I think 3,000 Ipswich fans at Hillsborough tomorrow. It's going to be a big crowd, good away support, and hopefully Town can come away with at least a point, hopefully 3.